She went for a job interview, and the CEO was the man from her one-night stand. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Emma walked into the sleek, high-rise building, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. This was it, her big shot. The job interview she had been waiting for, the one that could change everything. She had spent weeks preparing for this moment, crafting the perfect resume, practicing her answers, and perfecting her look. But no amount of preparation could prepare her for what was about to happen. As she approached the receptionist, the buzz of conversations and the faint clink of keyboards filled the air, a sound of a bustling workplace that she longed to be a part of. The receptionist smiled and motioned for her to take a seat. Emma's heart raced as she sat down, smoothing out the wrinkles in her second-hand skirt. She couldn't help but feel out of place here in her thrifted clothes, surrounded by the polished elegance of the corporate world. She glanced at her phone just a few more minutes before the interview began. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. As she waited, her mind wandered back to the night she would never forget. The night she had spent with a man she barely knew, a man who had sparked something in her she couldn't quite explain. They had shared a passionate, fleeting connection, a one-night stand that had left her with more questions than answers. She shook the thought from her mind. There was no room for distractions today. It was time to focus. Just then, a tall, well-dressed man walked through the door, and Emma couldn't help but notice the way he carried himself, his confidence radiating from every step. He looked familiar, but she couldn't quite place him. Her heart skipped a beat when their eyes met. He smiled at her, a polite but distant smile. "Emma?" he asked, his voice calm and composed. "Yes," she replied, standing up quickly, trying to hide the nervousness in her voice. "I'm Emma Brooks. Liam Parker," he said, offering his hand. Emma's heart almost stopped. She had heard of Liam Parker. He was the CEO of one of the most successful tech companies in the country. Her mind raced as she processed the realization. He was the man from her one-night stand. The same man who had been in her thoughts ever since that night. The man she had shared a moment of passion with, without knowing his true identity. But here he was, standing in front of her, about to interview her for a job she desperately needed. Emma felt a rush of embarrassment flood over her. She had no idea what to say. "I didn't expect to see you here," Liam said, his tone neutral but with a hint of surprise. Emma's mind was spinning. What were the odds of this happening? Of all the companies in the city, of all the people she could have been interviewed by, it had to be him. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She had to pull herself together. "It's a small world," she finally managed to say, her voice shaky. "I didn't expect to see you either." Liam chuckled softly, but there was a tension in his eyes that Emma couldn't quite place. He motioned for her to follow him into the conference room. As she walked behind him, she couldn't shake the feeling of being in the presence of someone who had unknowingly turned her life upside down. She tried to focus on the interview, but her mind kept drifting back to that night, to the chemistry they had shared. Was he just as uncomfortable as she was right now? Was he pretending that nothing had happened between them? The door to the conference room clicked shut behind them, and Emma took a seat across from him, trying her best to look confident. Liam sat down as well, his gaze steady as he looked at her. "Emma," he said, his voice calm, "I've read your resume, and I think you have great potential. But I have to ask, why do you want this job?" Emma took a deep breath, her nerves now in overdrive. She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could, a familiar feeling washed over her. It was the same feeling she had when she had first met him. Something about the way he looked at her, the intensity in his eyes, made her feel both nervous and captivated. She couldn't escape the pull between them, even if she wanted to. I want this job because I need it," she finally said, her voice steady. "I'm ready to work hard and prove myself." Liam nodded, his expression unreadable. But Emma couldn't help but wonder if he was still thinking about that night. Would he bring it up? Should she? The tension between them was palpable. And as the interview continued, Emma felt herself questioning everything she had known about herself and about him. This was just the beginning of a much bigger story than she could ever have imagined. Emma sat across from Liam, her hands gripping the edge of the conference table, trying to keep her composure. The silence between them was thick, heavy with the unspoken. Liam's gaze was steady, but there was an unreadable quality to his expression. Emma couldn't help but wonder if he was thinking about that night as much as she was. She shifted in her seat, trying to focus, to stay professional. But every word she spoke felt like it was coming from somewhere far away. "I'm ready to prove myself," she repeated, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "I've worked hard to get here, and I want to be part of this team." Liam nodded, but his eyes never left her. He opened his mouth to speak, then paused. "You said something earlier," he said slowly, "about needing this job. What exactly do you need it for?" Emma's stomach churned, but she refused to let the unease show. "I need to support myself. I've been struggling, but I have big dreams. I want to open an art studio someday." The words came out easier now. It was the truth, after all. She had always loved art, and it was the one thing that had kept her going through all the hard times. But as she said it, she realized that her dream of owning an art studio seemed so far out of reach now. This job, this interview, was her chance to build something real, to finally get on her feet. Liam seemed to consider this for a moment, his eyes flickering with something Emma couldn't quite read. "An art studio," he repeated thoughtfully. "That's an interesting goal." Emma nodded, feeling the weight of his gaze. She wasn't sure if he was impressed or just politely humoring her. "I've always wanted to create something beautiful, something that would help people see the world in a different way," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "But I know I need a steady job first. I need to be able to support myself before I can take that leap." Liam leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping lightly on the table. Emma could feel the tension building between them again, that same pull from before. She wanted to ask him, did he remember their night together? Did he recognize her as the woman he had shared that moment with? But she couldn't bring herself to do it. Instead, she focused on the task at hand, keeping her mind on the interview. "What about you?" she asked, forcing herself to sound casual. "What made you start this company?" Liam's expression softened, just for a moment, before he leaned forward again. "I wanted to create something that could change the world," he said quietly. "Something that could help people. It wasn't about the money or the power, it was about making a difference." Emma was taken aback by the sincerity in his voice. She had expected him to be cold, distant, like most CEOs she had read about. But there was something real in his words, something that made her see him in a different light. He wasn't just a businessman. He was someone who had a purpose, a vision. And for a brief moment, Emma found herself wondering if maybe, just maybe, there was more to him than she had thought. The interview continued, the questions flowing more easily now. They talked about her skills, her experience, and her passion for art. She was surprised at how comfortable she was talking to him, considering the circumstances. But with every word, she felt the distance between them slowly closing, only to be replaced by an overwhelming sense of confusion. Did he know? Did he recognize her? Every time he looked at her, Emma felt as if he was trying to see through her, trying to figure out if she was the same woman from that night. And every time he asked her a question, she couldn't help but feel like there was more at stake here than just the job. By the time the interview ended, Emma was both relieved and exhausted. She had given it her all, but there was still one thing she couldn't shake, the nagging feeling that Liam knew more than he was letting on. As they stood up to leave the room, Emma felt the tension snap like a string pulled too tight. Liam held the door open for her, his face neutral. "It was nice meeting you, Emma," he said, his tone polite but distant. Emma nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. "Thank you for your time." She stepped out of the room, her mind racing. She had to leave. She had to get out of here before she did something stupid. But as she walked down the hallway, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out and saw a text message from her best friend, Jenny. "How did it go?" it read. Emma typed a quick reply. "I think it went well, but I'm not sure. It's complicated." She hit send, slipping her phone back into her pocket. She took a deep breath and stepped into the elevator, the doors closing with a soft whoosh. As the elevator descended, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that this job, was only the beginning of something much bigger. And somehow, she knew that whatever happened next, it would change her life forever. As Emma stepped out of the elevator, the weight of the interview still hung heavily on her shoulders. She had done her best, but the tension between her and Liam was undeniable, a constant undercurrent that refused to fade. Was it just the awkwardness of the situation, or was there something more? As she walked down the sleek, polished hallway, her mind kept drifting back to that night, to the man who had shared the briefest but most intense connection with her, the man who, just hours ago, had sat across from her, interviewing her for a job she so desperately needed. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that she wasn't just Emma, the applicant. She was Emma, the woman he had shared a passionate moment with, though neither of them had said a word about it. Her thoughts were interrupted when her phone buzzed again. She pulled it out, her heart racing as she saw a new message from Jenny. "So, what happened? Any sparks?" Emma smiled to herself, the familiarity of Jenny's playful words bringing her back to reality. "Not sure," Emma replied, her fingers hovering over the keys. "It was strange, Jenny. I feel like he knows something. He kept looking at me like he recognized me, but we never said anything. It was intense. I don't know what to think." She hit send and slipped the phone back into her pocket. As she reached the building's exit, she stepped out into the cool afternoon air, the city bustling around her. She had always felt small here, surrounded by towering skyscrapers and endless crowds. But now, the city felt like a place she didn't belong. She pulled her coat tighter around her body, the wind biting at her skin, and tried to push the uncomfortable thoughts aside. For a moment, she wondered if Liam had thought the same thing, if he had felt the same connection that she had. But no, she couldn't let herself get caught up in that. This was just a job interview, a step toward the future she was trying to build. She couldn't let anything else distract her. As she made her way to the subway, her mind wandered again, this time to the unexpectedness of it all. How had she ended up in this position? How had the man from that one night become the man who could change everything for her? She remembered the way Liam had looked at her during the interview, that quiet intensity in his eyes. He had been so calm, so collected, and yet she had felt the subtle undercurrent of something more. Could he be feeling the same unease? Was he just as torn as she was about what had happened between them? Emma's thoughts were interrupted once again when she heard the familiar sound of the subway doors opening. She stepped onto the train, the sound of the world outside fading as she found an empty seat. The rhythmic motion of the train helped calm her nerves as she leaned back, trying to clear her mind. She needed to focus. This job, this opportunity, could be her ticket to a better life. She couldn't afford to get distracted by things she couldn't control. But as the train sped toward her stop, Emma couldn't help but wonder, what was Liam thinking? Did he remember her? Would he bring up that night the next time they saw each other? And if he did, what would she say? When she arrived at her apartment, she found herself standing in front of the door, hesitating for a moment before unlocking it. Inside, the familiar smell of her small, cramped space greeted her. It wasn't much, but it was hers. As she kicked off her shoes and sat down on the couch, her phone buzzed once again. It was a message from Jenny. "So, how did it go? Are you in or out?" Emma sighed, running a hand through her hair. She typed a quick reply. "I don't know. I did my best, but it's complicated. I feel like I might have blown it." She hit send and put her phone down, leaning back into the cushions, feeling the weight of the day settle in. She had done everything she could, and now, all she could do was wait. But deep down, she knew that this wasn't just about the job. There was something else at play here, something she couldn't quite put into words. The door to her future was open, but the man who held the key was the same man who had already changed her life in a way she hadn't expected. What would happen next? Only time would tell. But Emma couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to take a turn she hadn't seen coming. And she wasn't sure if she was ready for it. The next few days were a blur for Emma. She woke up early every morning, making her way through the daily grind of her life. She couldn't help but think about the interview, about Liam, and the strange tension between them that hadn't quite faded. No matter how much she tried to focus on her day-to-day tasks, her mind would always drift back to the unanswered question, did Liam remember her? Did he feel the same strange pull that she did? She had to admit, she had never expected a job interview to be so complicated. But then again, she had never expected to find herself face to face with the man from her one-night stand. It had only been a few days since that awkward meeting, but already Emma felt like her entire world was shifting. One night had changed everything, and now she was left to wonder what would happen next. She tried to push the thoughts aside, reminding herself that she had more important things to worry about. The bills were piling up, and her dream of opening an art studio felt further and further away. She needed this job, and she needed it badly. As the days passed, Emma tried to focus on moving forward, even though the memory of Liam's steady gaze and the tension between them lingered. Then, just when she had convinced herself that things were starting to settle, the unexpected happened. She was at work, wiping down tables at the small cafe she worked at, when her phone buzzed. She pulled it out of her pocket, glancing at the screen. It was a message from an unknown number. Her heart skipped a beat as she read the message. "Emma, this is Liam Parker. I'd like to speak with you about the job opportunity. Please meet me at the office tomorrow at 10 a.m. Emma stared at the message, her fingers trembling slightly as she reread it. Was this really happening? Was he reaching out to her? Why now? She had no idea what to make of it. Had he changed his mind? Was this about the job? Or was it something more? The uncertainty hit her like a wave, and for a moment, she couldn't breathe. She had been expecting to hear back about the job, but not like this. Not with the weight of everything that had happened between them. She quickly typed a reply, trying to keep her response professional. "Thank you, Mr. Parker. I'll be there at 10 a.m. tomorrow." She hit send and then stared at her phone, her mind racing. What was going to happen when she saw him again? Would they just pick up where they left off, pretending that the night they had shared never happened? Or was there something more that neither of them was willing to admit? Emma didn't know, but she knew she couldn't back out now. This was the opportunity she had been waiting for, the chance to take control of her life and build the future she had always dreamed of. She couldn't let her feelings complicate things. The next morning, Emma woke up with a sense of dread in her stomach. She had barely slept the night before, her mind constantly racing with thoughts of Liam and the upcoming meeting. She got dressed in her best clothes, a modest but professional outfit that she hoped would make the right impression. She took a deep breath as she stood in front of the mirror, trying to calm her nerves. This was it, the moment that could change everything. She grabbed her bag, her fingers brushing over the strap as she stepped out of her apartment and made her way to the office. The familiar hustle and bustle of the city felt strangely distant as she walked through the busy streets. The buildings towered above her, and she felt small, insignificant. But today, she reminded herself, she was there for a reason. She had worked hard for this, and she wasn't going to let anything get in the way. When she arrived at the office, she took a moment to collect herself before stepping inside. The receptionist greeted her with a polite smile and directed her to the elevator. As the doors closed, Emma could feel her heart pounding in her chest. She took a deep breath and stepped out on the top floor, where Liam's office was located. The space was sleek, modern, and intimidating. She walked down the corridor, her footsteps echoing in the quiet. She reached the door to his office, and before she could knock, it swung open. There he was, Liam Parker, standing in front of her, his eyes meeting hers. For a moment, neither of them said anything. The silence between them felt thick, heavy, as if they were both trying to figure out what to say. Liam finally spoke, his voice calm but with a hint of something else. "Emma," he said, his gaze lingering on her for just a second too long. "I'm glad you could make it." She nodded, her throat suddenly dry. "Thank you for meeting with me, Mr. Parker," she said, her voice steady but shaky on the inside. He gestured for her to follow him into the office. As she walked behind him, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting was about so much more than just the job. She had no idea what to expect. But one thing was clear, things were about to get even more complicated than before. As Emma followed Liam into his office, her heart raced, and the overwhelming feeling of déjà vu washed over her. She had been here before, in this building, in this very room, but not like this. The polished, modern space was cold and intimidating, with sleek furniture and large windows that gave a perfect view of the city below. Liam stepped aside, gesturing for her to take a seat. Emma sat down slowly, trying to control the fluttering in her chest. She couldn't help but steal glances at him as he moved around the room, his presence filling the space in a way that made her feel both small and important at the same time. He was tall, confident, and seemed so sure of himself, everything Emma felt she wasn't. Her hands rested nervously in her lap, and she tried to steady her breathing, reminding herself that this was just a job interview. Or was it? Liam sat behind the desk, folding his hands in front of him, his eyes meeting hers with a piercing gaze. "Emma," he began, his voice calm, but with an edge to it. "I've been thinking a lot about our meeting the other day." She swallowed, unsure where this was going. Was he about to bring up the one-night stand? Was this interview over before it even started? "I know this situation is unusual," Liam continued, his eyes never leaving hers. "I never intended for our professional relationship to begin under such circumstances." Emma's heart skipped a beat. He was acknowledging it, but how much did he remember? Did he see her as just a woman he had once shared a night with? Or was there more to this? "I want to be clear with you," Liam said, his voice firm yet not unkind. "The job is yours if you want it. You're qualified, and I believe you'll be a great fit for the role." Emma blinked, surprised by his directness. The job was hers? She had expected to fight for it, to prove herself, but now it was being handed to her. Her mind raced, trying to process what was happening. But there was something about the way he spoke, the way he looked at her, that made her feel like there was more beneath the surface. "But there's one thing I need to know," Liam added, his voice softer now, almost as if he were treading carefully. "How do you feel about us?" Emma's breath caught in her throat. She wasn't sure she had heard him right. "Us?" she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded slowly, as if the question had been hanging in the air for a while. "I know this is complicated," he said, his gaze never wavering. "But I can't ignore the fact that we've both felt something real. I saw it the other night. You saw it too, didn't you?" The words hung between them, and Emma's pulse quickened. Was he serious? Was he saying that he remembered their night together, that he felt the same pull she did? She opened her mouth to respond, but the words didn't come. Instead, her mind flashed back to that night, the laughter, the warmth, the way he had held her like she mattered. But that was just one night, wasn't it? She couldn't let herself get carried away by those emotions. This was a job opportunity, and she couldn't risk ruining it by letting feelings take over. I don't know what to say," she said, her voice shaky. "I wasn't expecting this." Liam leaned back in his chair, studying her carefully. "You don't have to say anything right now," he replied softly, "but I want you to know that I'm willing to take things slow, to see where this could go, if you're willing." Emma's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. She had never expected to be in this situation, and the last thing she wanted was to complicate her life further. But at the same time, there was something undeniable about the connection between them, something that made her question everything she had thought she knew about herself and her future. "I'm not sure what I want yet," Emma finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just need some time to think." Liam nodded, his expression softening. "Take all the time you need. This is your decision. But just know that whatever you choose, I'll respect it." He stood up from the desk, moving around to the front of it. "You're more than just an employee to me, Emma. I don't expect you to rush into anything. I just needed to be honest with you about how I feel." Emma stood up as well, trying to make sense of everything that had just happened. Her heart was racing, and her mind was filled with questions. What did this mean for her career, for her future? And more importantly, what did it mean for her and Liam? As she walked toward the door, she turned to look at him one last time. He was watching her with a steady gaze, but there was a vulnerability in his eyes that she hadn't noticed before. It was as if he was waiting for her to make the next move. "I'll think about it," she said quietly, before stepping out of the office and into the hallway, her mind swirling with emotions she wasn't sure how to handle. As she made her way to the elevator, she knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The job offer was just the beginning. Now, she had to figure out what to do with the rest of her life, and with Liam. The next few days felt like a blur for Emma. She went about her routine, but her mind was always racing. The offer from Liam, the CEO, weighed heavily on her thoughts, keeping her up late at night, tossing and turning, questioning everything. She had spent years dreaming of a career in the art world. But now, she was staring at an opportunity to work for a tech company, and the catch was undeniable, Liam. the man from her one-night stand, the man who had stirred something inside her that she hadn't expected. She tried to push the thoughts aside, telling herself that the job was just that, a job. It wasn't about the man. It wasn't about the chemistry between them. It was about her future, her independence, her chance to break free from the life she had been stuck in. Yet, no matter how much she tried to focus on her career goals, her heart kept pulling her back to the moment when she and Liam had locked eyes across the conference table. The memory of that night lingered, making it hard to think about anything else. The truth was, Emma wasn't sure what she wanted anymore. She had never imagined that a simple job interview would turn into a turning point in her life. And yet here she was, caught between the life she had planned for herself and the unexpected pull of a man who seemed to offer everything she never thought she needed. One morning, as she sat in the small, cozy cafe where she worked, waiting for the next rush of customers, her phone buzzed again. She picked it up, her breath catching when she saw the name on the screen, Liam. Without thinking, she answered the call. "Hello?" Her voice was tentative, unsure of what to expect. "Emma," Liam's voice came through the phone, smooth and confident as always, but with an undertone of something else, something she couldn't quite place. "I've been thinking about you, about everything we discussed." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure if she was ready to talk about this again, but she knew that she couldn't keep running from it. "I've been thinking about it too," she said quietly, her fingers nervously tapping on the counter. "And?" Liam's voice was gentle, but there was an edge to it. "What do you want, Emma? I'm offering you a chance to be part of something bigger than yourself, but I can't help but feel like you're holding back. Is it the job, or is it something else?" Emma closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. The question he had asked felt too simple, too direct, but the answer was anything but. "I'm not sure," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know if I'm ready to dive into all of this. The job, the company, you." She paused, feeling a lump form in her throat. "I've spent my whole life focused on one dream, one path. I've never considered anything else. And now I'm not sure what's real and what's just temporary." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line, and for a moment, Emma wondered if he had hung up. But then Liam spoke again, his voice softer this time, more understanding. "I get it," he said. "This isn't easy, but I need you to know, Emma, that I'm not asking you to choose between me and your career. I'm asking you to choose what makes you happy, what makes you feel alive. If that's this job, if that's us, then I'll support you. But if it's something else, something completely different, I'll respect that too." Emma swallowed hard, the weight of his words settling deep in her chest. He wasn't pressuring her, wasn't trying to convince her to choose him, to choose the job. He was giving her the freedom to decide what her life would look like. And that, more than anything, made her feel more conflicted than ever. "I appreciate that, Liam," she finally said, her voice steady but unsure. "I really do. I just need time to figure this out. I need to know what I want, what I really want." Liam was quiet for a moment, and then he spoke again. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere, Emma. I'll be here when you're ready." She felt a mix of relief and anxiety flood through her. Part of her was grateful for the space he was giving her, but another part of her wanted answers now, wanted to know where this was all going. "Thank you," she said, her voice a little shaky. "I'll let you know." After a brief pause, Liam ended the call, and Emma was left holding the phone, staring at the screen. She had no idea what the future held. But she knew one thing for sure: whatever decision she made, it would change everything. As she looked around the cafe, watching the customers come and go, Emma realized that she was standing at a crossroads, torn between the life she had always imagined and the one that was now being offered to her. She wasn't sure what the right choice was, but she knew she couldn't keep running away from it. It was time to make a decision that would define her future and the life she wanted to create. The question was, what was she truly willing to risk for it? The following week, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that everything was hanging in the balance. She had taken some time to reflect on what Liam had said, and though he had given her space, it was hard to ignore the constant pull between her dream of owning an art studio and the career path that was now being offered to her. She tried to focus on her work at the cafe, but her mind kept drifting back to the same question: what did she really want? What was she willing to sacrifice? That evening, After her shift, she found herself standing at the window of her small apartment, staring out at the city. The lights twinkled in the distance, but the view didn't bring the comfort it once had. It felt distant, almost foreign now, as if she no longer belonged in this space. She had been working for so long, grinding away in jobs she didn't love, all to save up for the day when she could finally start her art studio. It was the one thing that had kept her going through the hardest times, the thing that made her feel like there was something better waiting for her. But now, with Liam's offer hanging over her head, everything felt uncertain. The phone buzzed on the counter, pulling her out of her thoughts. She picked it up, recognizing the name on the screen, Jenny. "Hey," Emma said, trying to sound normal. "How's it going?" "Hey, I've been thinking." Jenny's voice came through the phone, upbeat as always, but there was something in her tone that made Emma pause. "I know you've been weighing your options with that job offer, but I think it's time you made a decision. You can't keep going back and forth forever." Emma sighed, sitting down on the couch. "I know. I've been trying to think it through. It's just hard, you know? I've always wanted to open that studio, but the job with Liam, it's a huge opportunity. I don't know what to do." "Well," Jenny said, her voice softening, "if you stay stuck in the what-ifs, you'll never move forward. You've got to trust yourself, Emma. You've worked so hard to get here, and you're not just some girl with big dreams anymore. You've got options. You've got the chance to build something real. Don't let fear hold you back." Emma closed her eyes, the weight of Jenny's words sinking in. She had spent so much of her life focused on this one dream, on the idea of a perfect future that she had imagined for herself. But maybe the future wasn't about finding the perfect path. Maybe it was about taking a chance, about choosing something real and stepping into the unknown. "You're right," Emma said, her voice stronger than before. "I can't keep holding on to what I think my life should be. Maybe it's time to embrace what's in front of me and see where it goes." "Exactly," Jenny said, her enthusiasm evident. "You've got this." "I know you do." Emma smiled, feeling a sense of clarity wash over her. She stood up and walked over to the window again, looking out at the city. But this time, it didn't seem as distant. It felt full of possibilities. She had worked hard to get to this point, and now it was time to take a step forward, no matter how scary it seemed. The next morning, Emma woke up early, her heart racing. Today was the day. She had made up her mind. She was going to go to Liam, tell him she was ready to take the job. But she wasn't going to let the situation complicate things. She wasn't going to let her feelings cloud her judgment. It was time to focus on the future she could build, not the one-night stand that had once been a fleeting moment in time. She got dressed in her most professional outfit, a sleek blouse and a pencil skirt, and headed out. The air was crisp, the sun barely rising above the horizon. But there was something about the morning that made her feel more alive than she had in a long time. When she arrived at Liam's office, her palms were clammy, but she walked in with purpose. The receptionist greeted her, and she took a seat, waiting for Liam to come out. A few minutes later, the door to his office opened, and Liam walked out, looking every bit the confident CEO he was. But when his eyes landed on hers, Emma saw something different in his gaze, something softer. "Emma," he said, his voice warm, though there was a trace of uncertainty in it. "I'm glad you could make it." "I'm glad to be here," Emma replied, her voice steady. They walked into his office together, and as they sat down, Emma took a deep breath. "Liam," she began, "I've thought a lot about everything, and I've made my decision. I'm ready to take the job." Liam's eyes brightened, but there was still a trace of wariness in his expression. "That's great to hear," he said. "But I want you to know that no matter what, I'm here for you. This isn't just about the job, it's about us, too. I care about you, Emma." Emma looked into his eyes, the words hanging in the air between them. She felt her heart beat faster, but she knew she couldn't let herself get carried away by emotions. "I know," she said, her voice calm, "and I care about you too. But I'm here for the job, Liam. I'm here to build something with you, professionally. Whatever happens after that, we'll figure it out." Liam nodded slowly, his gaze softening. "I respect that, Emma, and I'm glad you're here." As they talked through the details of the job, Emma felt a sense of peace settle over her. She had made the right decision, not just for her career, but for herself. She was finally stepping into her future, ready to embrace the unknown with open arms. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind for Emma. She threw herself into her work at the tech company, determined to prove herself. The initial awkwardness between her and Liam had started to fade, replaced by a more comfortable, professional dynamic. They spoke often, but always about work project updates, company goals, strategy meetings. Yet, beneath the surface, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something unresolved between them. Her decision to accept the job had been a step toward her future, but it had also led her into a territory she wasn't entirely ready for. There was a growing tension whenever she was near Liam, a quiet undercurrent of emotion that neither of them acknowledged but both felt. Despite their professionalism, there were moments when their eyes would meet, and Emma would feel a spark, a reminder of the night they had shared, of the unspoken connection that still lingered between them. She couldn't help but wonder if Liam felt it too, if he was just as conflicted as she was. But for now, she had to push those thoughts aside. She was here to work, to build something for herself, and she wouldn't let her personal feelings get in the way. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, Emma sat at her desk, reviewing a project proposal. She was exhausted, her mind buzzing with data and deadlines, but she couldn't focus. Her thoughts kept drifting back to Liam. She hadn't seen him much today. He'd been in meetings all afternoon, and when he did speak to her, it was always about business. Yet, Emma had the feeling that he was avoiding her, that something had changed. Just as she was about to push the thought away, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, surprised to see a message from Liam. "Emma, can we talk? Meet me in my office." Her heart skipped a beat, but she quickly composed herself. She stood up from her desk, smoothing her skirt, and walked toward his office, her steps quickening with every passing moment. When she arrived, she knocked softly before entering. Liam was standing by the window, looking out at the city, his back to her. "Liam?" she asked, her voice tentative. He turned, his expression unreadable. "I'm glad you came," he said, his tone serious, but not unfriendly. He motioned for her to sit, and Emma did, her heart racing in her chest. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam didn't immediately answer. He paced for a moment, then stopped in front of her, his eyes meeting hers. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice low and measured, "about us, about what's been happening between us, and I need to be honest with you." Emma felt a lump form in her throat. Was this it? Was he about to finally address the elephant in the room? "I think about you, Emma," Liam said, his voice steady but with an intensity that made Emma's heart race. "I think about that night we shared, and I can't deny that there's something between us. I know we've both been avoiding it, pretending like it didn't happen, but the truth is I can't keep pretending." Emma's breath caught in her chest. She hadn't expected him to say that. She had always wondered if he felt the same way, but hearing him admit it aloud was something entirely different. "Liam, she began, but her words faltered. She wasn't sure what to say. Could they go back to being just colleagues after everything? Could she put her feelings aside for the sake of her career? "Emma, I don't want to complicate things," Liam continued, his voice softer now, "but I can't ignore what I'm feeling. I know this is complicated, we're both here for the job, and I don't want to lose that, but I also don't want to ignore what's between us anymore." Emma's mind raced, her heart pounding in her chest. She had been trying so hard to focus on her work, to ignore the pull between them, but now, standing here with him, everything felt overwhelming. She had been so afraid of letting her emotions take over, but now she realized that no matter how much she tried to fight it, the connection between them was real. "I feel it too," she whispered, the words slipping out before she could stop them. She looked up at Liam, her heart in her throat. "But I don't know what this means for us, for the future." Liam took a step closer, his eyes softening as he looked at her. "I don't know either," he said quietly, "but I think we need to figure it out, together." The air between them seemed to thrum with electricity as they stood there, the weight of their unspoken feelings hanging in the space around them. Emma didn't know where this would lead, but for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid to find out. "Let's take it one step at a time," she said softly, her voice steady, but with a hint of uncertainty. Liam nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "One step at a time," he echoed. As they stood there, the distance between them seemed to shrink, the professional boundaries they had carefully built slowly crumbling away. Whatever happened next, Emma knew one thing for sure: her life was no longer just about the job. It was about something far more complicated and much more real. In the weeks that followed, Emma and Liam slowly navigated the new dynamic between them. They had agreed to take things one step at a time, to figure out where their feelings might lead them, without rushing. It wasn't always easy. There were moments of awkwardness when they found themselves alone, lingering glances, unsaid words, but there was also something undeniable between them. Their professional relationship at work continued to thrive. Emma was excelling in her role, gaining the respect of her colleagues, and proving herself time and again. But at the same time, she found herself growing closer to Liam, their conversations drifting from business to personal matters, their connection becoming stronger with each passing day. Despite the challenges, there was an ease that came with being around him. The unspoken tension that had once filled the room was now replaced by a comfortable silence, the kind you only find with someone who understands you in a way no one else does. They were no longer pretending that the night they had shared didn't matter. They had addressed it, acknowledged it, and now they were moving forward, whatever that might look like. One afternoon, as Emma was working late in the office, she received a message from Liam asking her to meet him at a nearby restaurant for dinner. She hadn't expected it, but she agreed without hesitation. When she arrived, Liam was already waiting for her at a table in the corner, looking as composed as ever. As she walked over to him, she felt her heart race. There was something about him, something that still made her nervous and excited at the same time. "I'm glad you could make it," he said, standing to pull out her chair. "I've been thinking about us, about where we're headed." Emma sat down, her fingers nervously brushing the edge of the table. "I've been thinking about that too," she admitted, looking at him, her heart pounding in her chest. "I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I can't imagine it without you in it." Liam's eyes softened, and for a moment, Emma saw a vulnerability in him that he rarely showed. He reached across the table, taking her hand in his, the gesture simple but full of meaning. "I feel the same way, Emma," he said quietly. "I've spent a lot of time avoiding my feelings, trying to keep things professional, but the truth is, I don't want to live without knowing what we could be. I want to explore this with you, to see where it goes." Emma's heart swelled with emotion, and for the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of peace. She had been afraid of what this might mean, of losing control of her future. But in that moment, she realized that sometimes, you have to take a leap of faith. "I think we should take that leap," she said, her voice steady, filled with certainty. "I don't want to keep holding back. Let's see where this takes us." Liam smiled, a warm, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "One step at a time, then," he agreed. As they sat there, talking and laughing, Emma felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had made her decision. She was no longer afraid of what might happen next. She was ready to embrace the future, ready to build a life that was both professional and personal, both with Liam and for herself. Over the following months, Emma and Liam continued to grow closer, their relationship developing naturally. They faced challenges, of course, work pressures, personal doubts, the complexities of blending their professional and personal lives, but they tackled each obstacle together, finding strength in each other. Emma's career flourished. She had gained recognition within the company, and her dream of owning an art studio began to feel more attainable. She realized that she didn't have to choose between her career and her personal life. She could have both. And Liam, for all his success and confidence, showed her that love and ambition didn't have to be mutually exclusive. It was a balancing act, a dance between professional growth and personal connection, but Emma felt more fulfilled than she ever had before. One evening, as they walked through a quiet park near the office, Liam stopped and turned to her, his expression serious yet full of warmth. "Emma," he said, taking her hands in his, "I've been thinking about us, about everything we've built together, and I want to take the next step with you. Will you marry me?" Emma's heart skipped a beat, her breath catching in her throat. She looked at him, her eyes brimming with emotion, and without hesitation, she nodded. "Yes," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "Yes, I will." They embraced, standing there in the park, the city lights twinkling around them, the future stretching out before them, full of promise. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one that Emma knew would be full of challenges and triumphs. But with Liam by her side, she was ready for whatever came next. They had taken the leap, and it had led them to something beautiful, something real. Together, they were building the future they had always dreamed of, and Emma couldn't wait to see where it would take them. In this captivating tale of unexpected romance and career choices, we dive deep into the world of millionaire stories, where ambition, love, and personal growth collide. Emma, a young woman with big dreams of opening her own art studio, is thrust into a whirlwind when she accepts a job at a prestigious tech company led by the enigmatic Liam, a millionaire who holds both the key to her career and the spark of a complicated attraction. As they navigate their professional relationship, Emma grapples with her personal dreams and the undeniable chemistry between them. Throughout this journey, the millionaire stories unfold with moments of doubt, self-discovery, and the delicate balance between career and love. But when the lines between professional and personal blur, Emma is faced with a choice that could change everything. Will she follow her career path or take a leap into the unknown with Liam? In true millionaire stories fashion, the story reaches its turning point with a heartfelt proposal, leading to a future where Emma embraces both her career and love, all while navigating the complexities of a millionaire's world. This emotional roller coaster of millionaire stories shows that dreams are within reach when we stop running from them and start embracing the unexpected. With a mix of career ambition and love, Emma's journey is a testament to the power of taking chances and believing in what could be. The millionaire stories that unfold here will leave you wondering what choices you would make if given the same opportunity to follow your heart and your career.